Okay, franchise growth and enhanced popularity aren't always inherently positive, especially for dedicated veterans who have always followed a series near or during its inception. I believe that the Atelier series perfectly encapsulates that conundrum. The latest set of releases in the Ryza trilogy appeals to a new, broader demographic, with their general gameplay design increasingly departing from what the series pursued across its 3 previous trilogies. Now, this new direction has been embraced even more in the series' latest outing, Atelier Yumia, The Alchemist of Memories and the Envisioned Land. As a fan who has aligned more with the Ryza trilogy as of late, I was thrilled to see how a fresh start for this new cast and setting would go, and after experiencing this highly anticipated entry in full, I'm delighted yet underwhelmed in lesser measures.
人が乗っていい速度ってあるよね。
フラミーは完璧な補助装置として理想を追求しただけです。制御できない弓矢側に問題が
ない。あんなの誰にも制御できないバカ。
Atelier Yumia follows the titular protagonist and her quickly growing band of allies as they learn more about their continent of ruins, once ruled by the highly advanced Alidus Empire. In this case, Yumia in particular is driven more than most. After suffering from a loss and being maligned for being an alchemist, she is rather shunned in the community. So, now she's motivated by the memories of her mother teaching her skillful alchemy techniques. And now Yumia constantly aims to improve her skills as she faces off against antagonistic individuals who make uncovering the continent more perilous than she bargained for. It's worth emphasizing that Atelier Yumia is the most story-driven entry this franchise has seen in quite some time, contrasting the earlier days of the series when slice-of-life characters and episodes were the bulk of the experience. This understandable evolution from the storytelling of the Ryza trilogy boasts a genuinely grim and melancholic ambience, giving this entry its own distinct identity. Much of the continent is dominated by debris and wreckage, and Yumia's treatment as a troublesome outsider bolsters this atmosphere. Of course, the somberness is gradually countered as Yumia grows closer to her new friends. Still, this tone ultimately makes the relationship feel more earned than in previous entries. This underdog premise, on a much grander scale than expected, made my connection to Yumia more personal than any other Atelier protagonist to date. Plus, alchemy itself feels more special than ever, since Yumia is its seemingly lone practitioner in the vicinity. The playable cast also receives dedicated bonding episodes and camping scenes that delve deeper into their characterizations. So regarding the major characters and setting the stage, Atelier Yumia impressively thrives. However, while the plot and pacing try to grip you from the beginning, there just isn't enough intrigue across the regions you explore, with what does appear often feeling like lore dumps. Thankfully, the game's final act has meaningful payoff and stakes, but the build up to that point is a little dry. If anything, Yumia's dynamics with the playable cast, given extensive and natural focus, will keep you invested amid the narrative's more obligatory attempts at engagement. One central reason for the story's lack of fulfillment is rooted in its villains. Sadly, while they boast memorable presence and characterizations, they don't appear often enough to solidify themselves as constant threats. It's a real shame too, because 2 antagonists in particular are fantastic in the little screen time they receive, for entirely different reasons. When I reached the final area, I felt disappointed that these adversaries were grossly underutilized. Regardless, the ambition for evolving the series extends to Yumia's gameplay systems. Building upon what Ryza trilogy did with its exploration and scope, Yumia has multiple vast, more open-world-esque regions than ever in the series, alongside a skill tree impacting every facet. These regions are absolutely massive, and there's a ton to do, such as gathering ingredients, battling monsters, fishing, and completing objectives that simultaneously open up even more of the map and provide character-enhancing boons. These tasks are further encouraged by the pioneering effort, which is a collected assortment of assigned tasks for each region that provides substantially practical rewards across percentage milestones.
ここかな。さて、見て回りますか。
ここ何かありそうだね。ちょっと見てみようよ。
見つけた。
ねえ、これ素人の私が扱っていい素材なの？てや。
Atelier Yumia's gameplay is generally divided into 4 phases, so to speak. Firstly, you have the franchise's iconic staple, synthesis. This iteration follows in the footsteps of Rice's approachability, but still includes its own twists. Essentially, alchemy in this entry has you insert ingredients into different types of cores that heighten key aspects of a recipe. For instance, one core type enhances overall quality while another upgrades effects. Along the way, you gradually learn new skills that impart even more individualization. In typical Atelier fashion, the tutorials and opening hours can make matters appear far more overwhelming and contrived than they actually are. Ultimately, it's all just a matter of patience and experimentation. I found these systems equally as straightforward as what the Atelier Rice trilogy offered, unlike the earlier games which I initially struggled with. A respectable middle ground has also been implemented. You can have the game automatically handle synthesis based on chosen criteria. This process is much swifter than manual selections, making it ideal for newcomers and for bare minimum items needed for quests. However, that said, the lack of precision in chosen items makes the automatic mode far more desirable for veterans who want to min-max their creation's minutiae. The second gameplay phase is combat, arguably where the most substantial directional shifts can be felt. Action is the name of the game here, following Gust's previous RPG, Fairy Tail 2. Essentially, you initiate encounters on the field by coming into contact with the enemies, and the battles themselves involve tapping face buttons to perform character skills. You can swap manual control between party members who are either active in battle or in reserve whenever possible. Further, you're able to dodge telegraphed enemy attacks. Successful attempts grant opportunities for a damaging character swap. If that's not enough, usable synthesis items can be equipped by all party members, providing various effects for healing to raw damage and status effects. At a glance, the combat in Atelier Yumia may seem mostly divorced from synthesis, but you eventually realize there's an undeniable interconnectivity. Weapons, armor, and accessory recipes you learn play integral roles in handling steadily increasing enemy stats. Not keeping up with the newly learned equipment, recipes will make battles feel like you're dealing chip damage. This same philosophy applies to items that can be upgraded at regular intervals. I appreciated that fights occur across up close and distant planes that, if switched between, alter character attacks. This maneuver is occasionally required to evade special attacks from the enemies. It's a simple mechanic that adds several layers to the already heavily involved system, preventing encounters from becoming overly stale. Combat throughout Atelier Yumia is pretty satisfying and a sign of change I'm fond of, though its balancing and execution could use some refinements. The character skills lack compelling individuality, making combat feel like a button-spamming fest at points where dodging is your primary focus. Perhaps the strongest fault is that, for whatever reason, the boss battles are humorously easy and significantly less challenging than the regular enemies on the field.
エナジーがあって助かった急いでないし後でいいか
気をつけ
いつでも行けるよ
上から全身そうだ見せてあげる
バッチリだ
完璧だねやっ逃がすか
クルセイドだしこれなら
これでおしまい
そここれが私の本命よもらったいける隙だらけアクロバットジャックナイフクイックドロー遅いどれくらい強いか狙ってるつもり
行きますはね行きます
合図は任せた
そこ
いける
攻撃を警戒しろ
捉えたどれくらい強いか楽しみだ狙ってるつもりそここの子私の杖も怖いんだ
Circling back to exploration, which I would consider another primary gaming phase, the open world feel is most evident through the presence of mini puzzles. These tasks are all 5-second brain teasers that I wish were less frequent, since they're required for even the most basic utilities, like zip lines. Additionally, while the performance and presentation are generally favorable, occasional frame rate dips and low texture quality can be seen on select surfaces, and they do kind of stand out. Further, there's some sections of the map that appear traversable, but are restricted. Ideally, as fulfilling as fully mapping out the world can be, future entries might benefit from a less is more approach, if only for greater memorability and impact. On the other hand, Yumia's motorcycle for swifter traversal and her firearm with unlockable bullets that unveil new pathways were aspects I would have liked to see embraced a little more. On the field, you can perform simple synthesis, which is no replacement for the traditional synthesis at the Atelier in bases. This process lets you quickly craft on-the-fly items like cooking ingredients, fishing fishing lures, and repair kits for locked treasure chests. It's really just a highly simplified item crafting system that takes a few seconds. The final gameplay phase, and admittedly the one that I spent the least time in, is building. This game lets you build bases across multiple regions, and besides housing practical appliances, decoration is highly encouraged. You can discover a plethora of parts to customize your decor, while those less aesthetically inclined can opt for pre-builts. At most, you only need mild involvement in base building to complete the pioneering effort, which may require specific furniture placement. This also intertwines with exploration, since some building recipes are found by merchants or in the wild. However, the building itself can be somewhat odd, as many objects like tables and chairs can be placed in mid-air without any visible support, making the system look a little haphazard. Something crucial, building also includes alchemy-based contraptions, such as workbenches and forges. One of the most underrated facilities is the trait blending station. Essentially, equipment in the entry has trait slots, with more openings generally depending on the product's overall quality. These slots can be equipped with trait crystals granting various boons, and the blending stations can merge fragments for significantly helpful outputs. Personally, I found this feature quite welcome, as it encourages experimentation and individualized builds in an accessible manner. So to wrap this up, these machines are invaluable for getting the most out of your continually evolving toolkit. Yet, like Synthesis, they strive a middle ground where casual players can get by without engaging deeply. That said, the invention everyone will use gradually is the recipe learner. Besides letting you learn new recipe, it also upgrades their default boons and stats upon creation. This feature felt clever the longer I played, as it maintained relevance for older recipes, making them increasingly viable later on, instead of just relying on higher quality ingredients. Atelier Yumia is a dense JRPG with countless interlacing gameplay components culminating in an addictively gratifying experience. From an emotional charged narrative, new combat, and reimagined synthesis ideas to a grand open world filled with activities, this is a bold and confident direction for a long-running series. Admittedly, the sometimes dry delivered story and a few crude gameplay executions are factors needing refinement. Still, I'm eager to see how this future series develops, even if this may not immediately click with fans of the series. Noisy Pixel is giving Atelier Yumia an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.